Man, this 120 is just like shockingly good on this trail. And to describe, that sounded like I popped my tire. I don't think I did. To describe this trail, it's very rocky, kind of this 8-inch to 1 foot kind of chundery sections, and super high speed. I know the GoPro doesn't always do the best job, but very high speed. And the 120 handles it so well. And the 140, I mean, obviously handles it even better, but that's what you would expect of a bike like that. So the 120 will surprise you at how well it descends. I mean, most people out there riding, when you're looking at a bike like the 140 or the 120 and you're just trying to decide which one to go with, the biggest factor is speed, how fast are you gonna ride this bike, and then where are you gonna ride it. You can ride the 120 anywhere you're gonna ride the 140, you just might have to go a little slower. But even this 120 can handle these pretty high speeds better than most in its category. Yeah. And the Fox 34 of today is just so much better than the Fox 34 of even, 2 years ago. And so you can probably ride this bike harder because of that. Man, that is just so freaking fun. Wow. Wow. That was so freaking fun.
That was so good. I hit my rim twice, front and back.
I hit my back. I thought I lost air. It made just a loud ping.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. I haven't ridden that in a minute.
That was so fun. Dude, the 120 keeps up.
I know. You were there.
I was there the whole time and I didn't feel like the bike let me down at all. Like, you can push this bike harder than most 120 mil travel bikes in this category. So, I mean, of the 120 bikes out there, this and the Santa Cruz Tallboy are probably the ones that you might consider if you're wondering if you should make that leap up to the next step of the Santa Cruz High Tower, Ibis Ritmo, or the 140. This 120 is one that you could actually have a conversation like, oh, maybe I'll go with the 120 instead of the 140. Hey guys, I just got back from riding the SB120 again this morning. I rode it down Jacob's Ladder, which is high speed, lots of like chundery sections of trail. And I gotta tell you, the idea of making an SB120 versus a SB140 lunch ride video is pretty hard for me to wrap my head around because these bikes have a lot of overlap. They're pretty similar in a lot of ways. Even though that only has 120 millimeters of travel, it can kind of keep up with a bike like this. It's kind of crazy how good that bike is at handling the higher speed and slightly chunkier trails. All right, let's see how this 120 does on the lower trails. I've been riding the SB140 not every day in the last week, but almost every day. I've been spending a lot of time on that bike. And every time I get back on this 120, I'm surprised at how capable it is in kind of the heavier, chunkier stuff. And then when you get on these flow trails, man, it's good. It's just a little bit easier to get through all these tight, twisty sections, slower speed, tight, twisty sections. The other thing that makes this so difficult is the SB140 is like uniquely well-rounded for this category. The geometry numbers of a trail bike like this are not as like progressive as other brands right now. For example, this is a 65-degree head tube angle and a 77-degree seat tube angle, and the wheelbase isn't like too out of hand. So because it's kind of a well-rounded geometry and a well-rounded bike, it kind of blurs the lines between these two bikes. Years ago, I did an Ibis Ripley versus an Ibis Ripmo video. And it did really well here on YouTube. And a lot of people really liked it, reached out and told me how much it helped them. And it was pretty easy to make that video because the Ripley and the Ripmo are more polarizing and different from each other than the two bikes in today's head-to-head video. So stick around in this video. I'm going to try to do my best to help you as if you were one of my friends asking me, hey Jay, which bike should I get? These are the two bikes. I want to get a Yeti. I know that. Should I get the 120 or the 140? And I'm going to try to help you on your way figuring out which bike to get. It's not as easy as the Ripley versus Ripmo. Not good. I mean, I'm glad that I came out here and filmed the 120 versus the 140. It needed to be done because I know that they're different category bikes, but honestly, I could see someone getting hung up on which one to get. The 120 punches a little above its weight in terms of a 120 mil travel bike, and the geometry looks like it wouldn't be as fast downhill as it is. And the 140, well geez, I just can't have, I have nothing bad to say about that bike. I mean, the 140 is so capable, yet still a lot of fun on these trails because of how efficient it is. Riding the 120 the last couple days, it kind of punches above its weight. It's only 120 millimeters of travel, but it's very supple, very composed, and gave me a ton of confidence when I was riding it. Like more than like an Ibis Ripley, for example. It just can go higher speeds, even though it has the same geometry as a Ripley. It can kind of go higher speeds and handle chunkier terrain. And so you might think, well, okay, maybe that's the bike I'll get. Maybe that's the well-rounded, good, go-do-everything bike. Well, yeah, until you hop on this bike. And you hop on this SB140 and you say, well, it doesn't feel that different than the 120, so how's it different? And I'll tell you, the biggest difference and the reason why you should go with the 140 over the 120 is if you can answer this question this way. I like to go really fast and do really scary stuff a lot of the time. That's where you're gonna find the limits of the 120 if you're that person. If you fit that type of criteria, you're gonna find the limits of the 120 a lot quicker than you're gonna find the limits of this SB140. I can't think of a trail that I'm willing to go and absolutely hammer on where I'm gonna ride the 140 and think, man, I wish I had more bike. I just don't think that's gonna happen for me. I'm 41 years old. I got to get up and go to work the next day. I can't be wadded up on the trail and end up in an emergency room. This bike makes me feel safe and secure at a speed limit that I'm willing to say, okay, that's as fast as I want to go. Now, if I went and ride some really chunky trails in Utah and took the 120, first of all, I'd be happy to take the 120 on any trail. It has the type of geometry and it gives me the confidence that I can go ride any high-speed scary trail in Utah. But I'm just gonna have to go slower. I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to say this bike is coming undone underneath me. I'm willing to ride this trail faster if I was on a 140, but I'm not. And so I'm gonna slow down. The bike is saying grab the brakes, it's gonna fall apart. I can't hang on to the bike anymore, That's how I think we answer and solve this problem here of which bike you can get. In terms of the bikes, I mean, right now, this is my personal bike. This Yeti SB140 Lunch Ride is the bike I'll be riding all year to go ride high-speed, scary stuff. And it just shreds. It's got enough wheelbase underneath me that gives me a ton of confidence. I never find the bottom of this bike. It's supple, it's damp, it's controlled. It gives me a ton of confidence and I feel safe on it. But when I go ride more moderate trails, it's still kind of zippy and kind of lively and kind of fun. That's where this bike shines more. So if your speeds are slower and your trails are more moderate, you're gonna lean more toward this bike knowing that it can kind of punch above its weight and still go get you into those areas that your friends might be taking you on. but it's going to be a little bit zippier, a little bit snappier on the more moderate trails at slightly slower speeds. I'm going to take it a step further and say if you only ever ride moderate trails, blue trails, and you're kind of always under 22 miles per hour on your Strava or whatever, whatever thing you use to, record your rides on, if you're always under 22 miles an hour, you should probably, not only are you leaning more toward the 120 than the 140 in this situation, but you should also probably consider some other bikes in that category. The Ibis Ripley, the Pivot Trail 429 are bikes that you really need to look at if you're leaning more this way after watching this video and spending this time with me. I ride a ton of different bikes. I really like this trail bike category right now. I've been spending time on the Switchblade, the Ripmo, the Specialized Stump Jumper Evo I have sitting in my house right now. And if you're leaning more towards this part of the video, like I like to go fast and do scary stuff, I like to go uphill so I can go downhill, and the idea of doing these moderate kind of undulating trails are less interesting to you, stop the video right now, call Salt Cycles and order an SB140. I don't think there's a better bike in this category than this. It does everything so well. When you go ride with your kids, or maybe your dad who's older, or maybe your wife is a slower rider, I'm not sure what your situation is, but sometimes when I go ride, like with my kids, for example, I'll still grab this bike because it's a lot of fun at more moderate speeds and slightly more moderate trails. That can't be said about some other bikes in this category. Some other bikes are getting a little too long in this category, and they're not that fun at slower speeds. So a lot of these bike decisions that you're making right now, I think, come down to speed, and then terrain, and then last, riding style. Kind of like, what are you trying to get out of your ride? You just want to go out and look at nature and look at the birds and be out on a trail? We'll get something that's slightly more efficient uphill and a little bit more comfortable geometry for just cruising along. This is slightly more demanding to ride, and so if you're just gonna go look at the birds, take that bike. I don't know, we're gonna wrap this up because I'm not gonna say that bike's just made for people who wanna go out in nature, because it's not. I ripped that bike this morning at speeds over 35 miles per hour, according to my Strava, down some pretty chunky trail. It's capable, it can do it. This is a hard video for me to make because these bikes kind of blur into each other's categories more than other brands' bikes. I'll just tell you that these are highly efficient pedaling bikes, very efficient. In fact, I actually, most people who buy a 140 wouldn't do this, but I pulled the wheels and tires off the 120. It's got recons on there, and I put them on this for a week, and man, it just made this bike come to life. It dropped about a pound off the bike because of the tires, and it just felt zippy and fast and fun everywhere. This is a bike that can literally just go do it all if you're on the higher speed spectrum. If you're on the slower speed spectrum, and this is the last thing I'll say to wrap it up, if you're on the slower speed spectrum, maybe you have some more research and shopping to do if the 120 is the bike that you're landing on. Nothing wrong with the 120, I love it. It kind of does everything really well, but if you're on slower speeds, that Ibis Ripley might be a lot of fun and maybe worth looking at. I hope you liked today's video. It was a hard one for me to make because both bikes are really good and they kind of do a lot of the same type of stuff. Salt Cycles is the one who's supporting me and getting me these bikes. I have had that bike since October of 2022. It's going to be going up for sale. I've ridden it for a while now, for probably 7 or 8 months now, and it's been a lot of fun and it's moving on, and I'm going to spend more time on this 140 the rest of this season. I had Salt Cycles build up this custom build for me. They can do the same for you. Most of Yeti's builds come with SRAM drivetrain, and I prefer Shimano, and so I've got XTR on mine, but they can custom build any of these bikes for you. They are Yeti, Pivot, Ibis, Cannondale, Transition, and Revel bike shop, and can get you any of those bikes. What a great time to be a mountain biker. So many good options. I mean, I could probably, I don't say this very often, but I could probably be happy with either one of these bikes as my only bike. That 120 can go handle enough high-speed trails, for me anyway, that I can make that bike work as my only bike. I know a lot of people who watch the channel only have one bike at a time, and I have to remember that because I've got like 7 bikes at my house right now. It's bananas. I need to remember that a lot of people have one bike at a time, and I could build a case for the 120 working, where an Ibis Ripley probably wouldn't be able to cover enough high-speed, scary terrain. That might handle that a little better. And then the same thing with this. This could probably handle enough of the slower trails. If I wasn't going to do any cross-country racing, then this could probably be my only bike. It's a hard one to decide. I get where you're at if you're in between these two bikes. I'll just say these Yeti bikes feel very, very nice to ride. I had so much fun riding that SB120 this morning. The bike just rips. It's incredible. If I made the decision harder for you, I apologize. I have other videos you can go watch. Go watch my SB120 video or my SB140 video, and hopefully that helps you. But both excellent bikes. I'm going to be spending the rest of the year on this 140. Hope that was helpful, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks. I'm rolling into Kevin there on that one. Oh man, so fun. Wow. Nice, Kev.